Hello, and welcome back to another fun-filled episode of the Hammercast. I'm your host, Alex, the Hebrew Hammer Salkin, and joining me today is my friend, Levi Markwardt. Spent a good amount of time catching up just beforehand. He and I go way back. We'll have to reminisce a little bit about all the time that we've spent getting to know each other, both online and in person, sort of toward the beginning, because we're going to go over his origin story and how he's become the guy that he is today. Very, very impressive athlete. Very seasoned as well in the world of kettlebell training, and all sorts of other good stuff. Very interesting story. So we'll begin shortly. But as always, I'd like to remind my listeners that if you haven't already, you should get my 9-minute kettlebell and bodyweight challenge. As the name implies, it only takes 9 minutes to do, and it can be done in addition to whatever you're currently doing. So you don't have to put your current workouts on hold. It's something that's meant to complement your training rather than complicate it. So go to 9minutechallenge.com. You can get your own free copy, and a good time will be had by all. And speaking of having a good time and a good time being had by all, Levi, thank you very much for being here.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's funny because I think about watching your I would say like meteoric rise in the world of kettlebell training and strength, and how you've made such a great name for yourself. If for no other reason, not even just your incredible strength, but your work ethic. I mean, you're a guy who I follow your posts a lot, and I always like seeing that, today I was really tired, but I did the workout anyway. And there so often I feel like people are, when they're like, I'm tired, I'm just going to skip the workout. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. But you've got a really, really great philosophy and a really great approach to training. And it suited you quite well as all of your students. But we'll talk a little bit about how you got to where you are today. But I like I said, I want to reminisce a little bit about how we got to kind of know each other, because it started off, we sort of were hanging out in similar forums online. And I just saw, one of the first videos I remember seeing of you was doing Simple and Sinister with the Beast. Like it was nobody's business. It was almost, I don't want to say like it was easy, but you made it look easy at the very least. You remember that video?
Yeah, the first time that I would have done it, I had just found out about it. I think maybe the day before. I didn't know it was a thing. I was talking with Mark Rifkind, and he had told me about it. And so then I thought, well, I better give that a shot, and was able to knock it out that first time. And since, many times since then, that was kind of my, before I transitioned into the world of sport, that was kind of what I enjoyed to do, or was maybe became known for, why my social media had grown the way it did. So.
Yeah, that's exactly how I remember it too, because it was Mark Rifkind who shared it. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like this guy is he's a real phenom. This is incredible. And then you and I have gotten a chance to actually meet in person a couple times and hang out. I think the first one was at Corey Howard's gym.
Yes.
In Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I was teaching, this would have been like 2016. I was teaching a bodyweight strength workshop. And you live not too terribly far away. You live out in...
I'm 90, 100 miles away or so from Sioux Falls. Yep.
Yeah. So if you break the speed limit, it's like an hour's drive, pretty much.
An hour and a half, yeah. Hour and a half.
Yeah. But we had a great time. I remember, I remember you did quite well when we were going through like one-arm push-ups and things like that. It was, you made the... and I don't think you'd ever really trained one-arm push-ups before.
It's bodyweight is fascinating to me, because nothing will make me feel weaker faster than some bodyweight stuff. And just because it's such a different type of training, and it's amazing. You still see it online. People say it about kettlebells, they say it about calisthenics. Oh, you just can't get stronger without the bar, and it's just unreal to me, the amount of mobility required, and grip strength and positioning and techniques, and the skill of training. I think is, when you talk about calisthenics, there's and not that there's not a skill to all lifts, but
sure.
the skill of, you can watch a video online and you can go, I'm going to go do that, and then just get like blown away about how difficult it is. And until you learn how to do things, it will remain difficult. And so I think, unfortunately, a lot of people give up on it way too soon. And I'm even guilty of that too, is I enjoy the kettlebells and so, but my calisthenics are something that I wish more people would give a chance and dedicate some time to. But
Definitely. Yeah. And, I think, we're talking about like one arm push-ups and, pistol squats and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people also, and this is, I was guilty of this for many years. A lot of people kind of have the mistaken notion that you have to at least get to that level to really gain much of anything from calisthenics training. But even that's not really true, because
right.
you see a lot of these guys who can just knock out like, 50 to 100 push-ups at a clip, or 100 or so bodyweight squats at a time. And these people are still crazy strong. I mean, it's
Yep.
a different kind of strength, but it has a carryover into kettlebell training, into barbell training, all these sorts of things. So there really is something about being able to commandeer your body against gravity that you don't quite get the same benefits of when you're moving an object through space. You get different benefits from doing that.
Yeah.
So I think that the two are extremely complementary. And if I'm not mistaken, I know, right now we see you as this like man chisel out of granite, but at one point you were not as in shape, and fitness was not like an ever-present part of your life. And I want to kind of go back to the beginning because I think that your whole story is something that should really inspire a lot of people, because there was a time at which you were fitter when you were young, which is what anybody would expect. And then you went for a while where you were not really as focused on your strength and your fitness. And then in your 30s, I believe it was, you started getting back into strength training and have gotten to where you are now. So it's not like you were this sort of like Bane-like figure, who was born in some sort of like a challenging circumstance and has just been hardcore your whole life. There was some doldrum periods in there, if I recall correctly.
Oh, for sure. I was always a chubby, lazy kid. I liked playing sports growing up. And that was really the only kind of thing that that was really the only thing that I would have done probably through middle school. And, there was no like what I do now for a job. I have all kinds of kids coming into my facility and doing structured programming and learning how to move safely and picking up load and things like that. But, for me, it was, you ride your bike to your friend's house, or, you kind of run around. I was just soft and chubby and through middle school. And then in high school, I still, for whatever reason, I had a growth spurt and, maturity, and I lost all my baby fat and was far more athletic, of course, wrestled and played football, baseball, and wrestled in college. But when I got to college, so I was pretty lean and had an athletic frame then in high school. But when I got to college, I wrestled heavyweight, and, you get on the school meal plan and you eat as much as you want when you want to eat. And I was never a fan of extra work. Even through college, you had to twist my arm and I'm cutting corners, and, I'm the guy that when the captain turns his back or the, coach takes, whatever, gets distracted by somebody else, I'm the guy that's over there. At heavyweight, we were leaning on each other more than we were wrestling, so yeah. It was never something that excited me. Exercise didn't excite me. Sport did, competing did, but practice did not, and extra definitely did not. So, and then I competed my senior year of college. I was probably that 265 range at heavyweight. I'm 6'1" so I mean, I didn't look like crazy big, but I mean, I was definitely but it wasn't a good composition, strength or muscle to fat composition. I definitely carried a lot of extra body fat. And then, you get out of college, and I lost a little bit of weight, not intentionally, just because I wasn't training anymore. And then we have my daughter, my wife and I have my daughter, and slowly the weight came back on. And I was about 290 or so when my dad passed when I was 20. I just turned 28. And that was the catalyst that really changed my life. And it was one of those things where a lot of people come to that crossroads when and my dad, he passed away from pancreatic cancer, so it was a lot of lifestyle. There's genetic components involved as well, but lifestyle. He checked off two of the main boxes. As far as like inactivity and his diet and things like that. And so that was one of those things where I was heavier when he passed away. I was heavier than he ever was. He was 50 when he died, and so that was kind of like having a young daughter at home and me being an emotional wreck when he passed away. It was the the catalyst that I needed, and so that's when I changed everything. I came across actually one of my clients mentioned the name Ross Enamite, and I started to research Ross. This is before social media was really a thing, just in the infancy. And I got connected with Ross, and that's kind of who I followed for years and years and years, and used his methods and bought all of his books, all of his T-shirts, beanies, whatever I could do to support Ross. That's what I was doing, and fell in love of all things with the burpee. I probably did more burpees in that time to lose that weight than anything. And I still, if you follow me on social media, I still do burpees all the time. But it's kind of one of those things where there's probably not a bigger impact, a single exercise that had a bigger impact on what helped me transform. So from a physical standpoint, mental standpoint, the burpee is king.
Yeah,
for me.
I know you're probably one of the few people out there who really loves the burpee.
Yeah, no, it's weird. I admit it.
No, but I'll tell you, man, like you definitely made it work, because I've seen videos of you doing burpees, even really advanced ones. Like probably one of my favorites is like burpee into muscle up. I've seen you do, I think, a bunch of times. I got to hand it to you, because Ross, it's funny because I haven't heard that name in a while, but I love his stuff too. The guy is like unbelievably strong. Just and in a lot of different modalities, like traditional weights, kind of awkward objects, boxing, calisthenics. Like the dude can do it all.
Yeah, no, he's super. And that was kind of the big thing that got me into sharing videos. Obviously you're going to have detractors, but one of the things that really inspired me from Ross was just the fact that, like, I wanted to be him. Like, I knew I wasn't going to be him. Much different body sizes, injury history, all that. But I wanted to be the closest version I could become of what he was. And I would watch his videos and be like, man, that's what I want to do, or that's how I want to train, or that's how. And like, sometimes, I post a lot. Obviously, I post way too much, probably for most people, but
not enough.
Not enough, yeah. But it's one of those things, like there's going to be somebody out there that's going to watch something that I put out there that will hopefully have the same impact that Ross had on me, and I will forever be grateful to that man. I hope one day that I get the opportunity to meet him. I've messaged him numerous times, just as a thank you, as someone that is still a fan and someone I consider a mentor. So there's a lot of people that have shaped my life, but from the like I said, the passing of my father, and then happening to find out who Ross was, and that's kind of what transitioned everything into who you see today. And then the kettlebells is kind of like what topped it all off, I guess. So
yeah, it's interesting you point that out too, because I think that for a lot of people, what really leads them in adulthood, what leads them one way or another to wanting to get in better shape is coming to kind of a stark realization. I think whether it's they wake up one day and they look in the mirror and they kind of have a flashback to what they looked like when they were in high school or college, or when they find it difficult to do things that they used to be able to do, or, like the example you gave, that, they're sort of confronted with mortality, and they see, a reflection of themselves in the loss of a loved one. Like you talked about how you were heavier than your dad was, and your dad had, there were lifestyle factors that contributed to his untimely passing. And I think that it's one of those things that when people are given a glimpse of what, kind of like the ghost of Christmas past and the ghost
Sure.
of Christmas
Yeah.
future,
Yeah.
I think that really speaks to a lot of people. And I think your story is one that people can really relate to in many ways. And again, it's always very fortunate to find, like what they say, that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And, you found a great teacher to begin with, and you use that to continue your journey on. And again, you're now primarily known for your kettlebell feats, but it didn't always start like that. But now I'm curious in particular, because it's especially intriguing to me, we could say maybe the 180-degree turnaround from somebody who wanted to cut corners and do as little to get by as possible in your wrestling days, to a guy who's doing arguably the most brutal strength endurance sport like mankind has ever conceived of, which is kettlebell sport. What made you decide, after training with the kettlebell in a variety of different ways, that you wanted to try the sport method?
Oh my gosh. So there's a lot of different, I got that question on the email, and I thought, man, this is a rabbit hole here.
Great.
So I'm about to turn 44. And so it would have been 4 years ago was my first time visiting the Arnold Classic in Columbus. And I went there with a friend, member of my gym. We drove over there, and we just wanted to kind of experience it. And I wanted to meet Joe Daniels, because he's over there close. And
somebody that kettlebell, isn't that him?
Yep, swing his kettlebell. And I had become friends with him, and he was in Cincinnati, or is in Cincinnati area. And we thought we would go meet him, go hang out at the Arnold, and all that kind of stuff. And I back up just a minute here. I got my kettlebell start with as a professional with RKC, and I had been practicing the hard style. We had talked about Sinister, and so I had always kind of been more. I liked the endurance aspect, which is, like you just pointed out, kind of weird, since I was always cutting corners growing up. But for whatever reason, I think the draw was because I really got into the burpees from Ross. I think the draw was wrestling practice. I think it just, like, I'm going to be exhausted when I'm done. I feel like I did something. Mm-hmm. And so the burpees were a big hit with me. I did a lot of sledgehammer swinging when I was training before kettlebells. And when I got to the RKC, I was introduced by a former client and friend of mine by the name of Josh Bervin. And he showed me everything in kind of like a one-on-one, like what you would learn at a 3-day cert. He showed me over a weekend, just the two of us, and at my gym. And I had 220s and 224s in my gym that were just collecting dust. And he said, well, and crazy thing to think about is, like, a lot of times the 20 and the 24 were more than I needed, and I wasn't, like I said, I was knocking out hundreds of burpees in a workout, and I was in good shape. The kettlebell was completely different, and it changed everything on what I thought I knew about, from a conditioning aspect. And so I started doing lots of complexes, stuff I would write myself. I got into, again, Mark Rifkin introduced me to Viking Warrior conditioning. And so I worked up to the whole 40 minutes of 8-rep cadence with a 24. And I really enjoyed the snatch and the get up. Those are my two favorite modalities or exercises with the kettlebell. And so I began working on doing longer sets, because the whole strength side of kettlebell training, it was just never I liked bench presses and get ups to go heavy, but I don't pressing squats. None of that stuff. Just, I like the snatch. I like that endurance aspect. So I started doing sets of working up to 10, 20, 30 minutes multi-switch with a 24. And I was feeling pretty good about myself. And we went to that Arnold, and I had learned there. That was my first GS experience, kettlebell sport experience. And I watched people do long cycle. I watched, snatch sets with one switch. Then I learned that there was marathon, kettlebell marathon, and which are basically 30 minutes as a half marathon, and a full hour as a marathon, and then there's some crazy stuff beyond that. But that's when I learned about kettlebell marathon, or for me, half marathons, and that's what was intriguing. Like sport, I knew what sport was, kettlebell sport was, but it was not intriguing to me because I have a massive ego, and I knew that a 32 kg one switch test for snatching was not something that I wanted to do, and I knew I couldn't do it. And so instead of like bearing down and trying it, and learning it, I just like, nah, I can't do that. And so I went the half marathon route because it's multi-switch. And I had already been doing multi-switch at the 24. Then I learned that to compete, I needed to do a 32 for a half an hour. And that was a whole kind of like what in the hell type moment for me. And so I picked the event half snatch because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to snatch a 32 for half an hour without ripping my hands to shreds. And so that was really the journey for me, was getting involved with the half marathon, because it was multi-switch, and I could do half snatch, which is, for those that may not know, it's snatch on the way up and then dropping into rack on the way down. And so it's a lot easier. It's a slower movement. There's less momentum when you go to re-snatch the bell, but it's a lot easier on the hands and a lot easier on the grip from a fatigue standpoint, because you're dropping from rack or your shoulder versus from overhead. And so that was my journey into. I've competed twice for Team USA Marathon, once in Spain in 2018 and once in Poland in 2019. I've earned the rank Master of Sport in both of those. Once I got into, I didn't perform the way I thought I would in Spain, and that made me realize that I needed my own coach, and that's when I had been talking with a guy by the name of Michael Sun, who had been giving me some advice on the side, and that's when I knew that everybody I was competing at these high levels and putting up crazy numbers was doing so because they had training, they had specificity, they had programming to take them, and that's when I kind of went all in on the. And so I had Michael start programming for me. And I made tremendous progress very quickly, getting prepared for. And then I went and competed at the next Arnold in half marathon, and put up a real big number, much better than I did in Spain. And that's when Michael started having me. He says, "I want you to try some long cycle. I want you to take 224s, and I want you to go as long as you can. I don't care what your pace is. I want you to go, if you can stop at 10 minutes, if you can make it 10 minutes, stop at 10 minutes. And I just want to do this as a test." And so keep in mind, I'm Master of Sport. I can snatch a 32 for 30 minutes straight. And I've got an ego. And so I grab these. I'm like, "Michael, I'm a single bell competitor. I don't need this long cycle nonsense, but I'll do it to humor you. And I'll knock out, I'm going to do 8 a minute. For 10 minutes, I'm gonna knock out 80 reps. I've never done this before, other than a complex where I'm doing 5 or something. Mm-hmm. And I'll do 8 a minute for 10 minutes, and I'll go work out after that. And I went 8, 6, 6, 6, and quit. And I barely finished that 5 minutes, and I can't imagine how many no counts would have been involved in that 5 minutes. And I was like, I want no part of this. I can barely do 5 minutes. How can anybody do this for 10 minutes with 32s for men? I was like, this is ridiculous. And then, I came across a workshop by Dennis Vasilev at Kim Fox's place. I drove 8 hours to go learn from Dennis and meet Kim. And then I knew who Kim was and I knew who Dennis was, but not well. I knew they were both world champions. And then I saw the numbers that Kim was putting up with 224s. I think like 86 or something. And I'm like, dude, you can't even do 5 quality minutes. And she is crushing you. And this was the moment, I think, when I'm like, if you're gonna do something, if you're gonna stand out, there's established numbers, there's established rankings, this isn't working out in a gym. This is something much bigger. This is not like a social media post. This is a life. That's what I think drew to me. Is so when I'm watching, Kim, I'm watching Dennis, it's like, all right, either you go all in or you get out of the deep water, So then that's kind of like my whole thing right now is, either you learn to swim or you stay on the beach. And like I said, thankfully my ego is large enough that if you kick it around and you make me look stupid, that I'm gonna learn. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. And so I went from, like I said, I don't know what is 34 reps in 5 minutes with 24s. I just recently completed an actual long cycle set with 32s and hit 61 reps. And that's something that I'm super proud of now. I'm just working towards doing that in a competition. So
it's incredible. Yeah, I like how you pointed out too that it's like again, there's sort of a theme. It's like you gotta kind of have to be confronted with something in order to level up. With the untimely passing of your dad, you'd realize you had to level your life up and start exercising. And then when it came to finding something you really liked, you had to level up, to get to, the next position. And then after that, when you decided you wanted to compete, you realized you couldn't treat it like working out. It had to be treated like training.
Like training.
And I want to point out too that I'm glad that you pointed out that it's good that you have an ego, because I remember reading this book. I can't remember the name of it. I have it. It's on my shelf somewhere, but it's one of the great lines in it was that like, well, you're supposed to have an ego. Otherwise God wouldn't have given it to you. So don't try to get rid of your ego. You want to try to use it. You want to try to find out how you can utilize it to make you better. And this is a perfect example of that. Like your ego gets crushed a little bit and you're like, all right, like I need to level up because I can't just let my ego stay crushed. I've got to expand it even more so that I can achieve greater things. Now you mentioned having competed in Poland and in Spain. Do you have any plans for a competition in the near future? Have you competed, since then? I know that there has been obviously a difficulty in traveling these last couple of years, but do you have any plans to travel to compete again?
Well, I've done a couple online competitions in my gym, thanks to COVID. I did. The reason I got into the 2-bell stuff anyway was I had always enjoyed double snatching and half snatching more than long cycle, just because I like that snatch and half snatch movement. And so I accepted a challenge competition, a one-on-one competition from Stefan Dogman, the president of IKMF, who I'd competed with in Worlds, and it was going to be a one-on-one competition versus a guy from Italy, and we were going to do it live on Zoom. Him from Italy, me from here in my gym in Spirit Lake, and it was going to be a side-by-side, and it was a 10-minute 224s, kind of like a long cycle setup, but with double half snatch. And unfortunately, the day before we were to compete, I got a message from my opponent that he said he injured himself and he was unable to. And so Stefan had originally called it off, and I'm like, dude, I literally spent 22 weeks, in paid programming to do this. I said, I'm going to do it. I'll put it on YouTube and you can do what you want with it, but I'm going to do it. And so he's like, no, you're right. We'll do it. We'll count it. It'll be official. You'll just be by yourself. And so that was the first competition I did online. I did another double half snatch, Amber kettlebells. This was put on by Sergey Rudinev. And I won that competition. That was a half snatch with 228s. I did 89 half snatch in 10 minutes with the 28s. And that was, I was able to win that competition. Very close competition. It was very, it's, competing at home is awesome because you're sleeping in your bed and you're using your bells and you can warm up, and you can kind of control the environment. Whereas at a competition, you can't.
Yeah.
But at a live event, you can make eye contact with your judge. You can communicate with your judge. So if you're getting no rep, you know why, and it counts at a live event where online events don't count. So I mean, yes, you win and all that, but I mean, if you want to rank or consider yourself earn a world championship or whatever, it's got to be in a live event, which makes sense. But anyway, so yeah, I have. And so I do want to compete live again. I think, unfortunately, because of my stance on the COVID vaccine, I am limited to United States competitions unless things change. But I hope to do one this summer in Chicago. That's right now, my fingers are crossed for that. But as a business owner and the busy time being in the summer, I may have to. We'll have to see how busy I get. So. But I'm gonna train. I'm gonna train in hopes to compete then, and then I'll have to adjust. But
yeah, that is the hard part. But like we were talking about this beforehand too. Like if you own a business and you got students relying on you, it's not easy to. I mean, you can try any way you want to try to justify the travel and all that other stuff, but people are relying on you, and
right.
it's tough on their schedule to be like, okay, well, I missed the Tuesday session. And so they just feel like they're losing some momentum. And so, yeah, I can completely get that.
Right.
Now the Chicago one sounds like that should be very interesting because now that's a ranked one, meaning like if you go.
Yep. So I could, so is, like I said, I've done well enough in my gym to rank master of sport. Now doing it in your gym and doing it on a platform are two different things.
Right.
And so my goal is to do that, then on a platform in a live event, earn that ranking, and then hopefully that'll allow me to kind of fade into the to actually just doing more training online and more training in my gym, and hopefully that'll scratch my competition itch enough to where I don't think I'm close enough to earn the rank of international class on anything. Mm-hmm. Other than, I mean, I've in long cycle, I should say. Sure. I've done it in a couple of different things for the endurance stuff in my gym, but it gets to be, like you said, those people are I think everybody's crazy that does that sport. The half hour, an hour. I mean, they're the same, but they're different, and it's just a different level of. I mean, you really got to ramp up to mentally to do those half hour, an hour sets. And then you think, well, 10 minutes will be short in comparison. 10 minutes with two bells is a lifetime, it feels like to me. And so, I get about minute 3 in there and I'm like, all right, well, it's time to set these down. This is getting uncomfortable. So, but yeah.
That's the thing with endurance activities, though, particularly like I think strength endurance ones, is that you get past a certain point where it really doesn't get any worse.
Oh,
it's like, you reach the peak, and what most people think is I can't handle anymore. And then the reality is, it's like, no, all you have to do is keep handling this level because it's not going to get any worse. You might reach a point where you just physically cannot do any more reps. And I've seen that. I remember years ago, I saw a video on YouTube. It was a kettlebell sport event. It was somewhere in the US. I don't remember who was competing, but it was in the snatch with a 32 kilo bell. I remember this. And the guy, I think all he needed was 2 more reps to beat the national record. I think this was over 10 years ago that I saw this. And he just didn't have it in him. Like, he just couldn't do those last 2 reps. I mean, it's like he was still holding the bell. It was like, just kind of like in between the legs. All he would have had to do is conceivably snatch it twice more, and he just had 0 more energy. So it's like, Yeah, it really is. If you've never done it, it's I think it's very hard for people to conceptualize it. But so much of it is mental, to the point where you have to be a little mental to
Yes.
actually want to do it. You have to be like obsessed. And you talked about Sergey Rudnev. Guy's a perfect example, because I mean
Yeah.
that guy. He's what's really impressive about Sergey is that he's not only incredibly talented at kettlebell sport, but some of the body weight feats that he has
Oh,
done
sure.
are
Yeah, yeah,
unreal.
yeah.
Like I read a great article, and I would love to do it at some point, about how to work up to 100 pistol squats in a row per leg. And then there
Yeah.
was another one. He had a how he worked up to 300 push-ups in a row, no breaks whatsoever. Um,
Some of that stuff just seems like impossible, you
yeah,
know?
exactly. Yeah, it's truly outstanding. And but yeah, it does take a different kind of mentality just to compete, let alone to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, guys like Dennis Vasilev, you know, I've seen him do 100 dips. Um, that's, you know, I hit 25 and I'm like,
Is
yeah,
enough.
that feels like a grenade just went off in my chest, you know, to do
Right.
75 more. It's pretty crazy. I
Yeah.
just now, Ivan Markov put a video up of him doing 200 snatch with a 32 in 10 minutes with his left arm.
Oh God.
So, I mean, there's some. So anytime that I think that you know, there's people out there that are just, and that's what I love about the sport is, and just like when I started with Ross, it wasn't like when I watched his videos, it wasn't like, oh, I could never do that. Like, yeah, no, I know I can't do that. I know I'm never going to snatch 200 reps with one arm, but it's inspiring to me knowing that there's people out there doing that,
Yeah.
and I can, I just because I can't do it doesn't mean I can't be my best version of me. And so I know that there's a better physical version of Levi, and what that looks like it may like as I get older, it may not be more reps, it may not be more load, but there's a better version. You know, maybe I this discipline leads to something else in my life, and in fatherhood, or in my relationship with my wife, and or as a business owner. You know, the thing that I learned from competition is getting on a platform and underperforming. It allows me to coach my athletes. They don't have to be competing in kettlebell sport, but you know, failure or perceived failure um, is the same. You know, they're going to come up short on their goals. They're going to come up short in a, you know, whether it's performance or training or whatever, and I'm going to be there to help, you know, coach them through that, in addition to just their, you know, their performance, or you know, the good things. You know, I've had a lot of kids that have won state titles, you know, all Americans in college, but there's far more people that come up short than there is people that hit their goals. And you know, being able to console or encourage somebody when they're at their lowest is what's going to make them respond and become resilient and pick themselves up, and you know, do that next training cycle, or whatever it is. You know, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. And you know what I think too? The other thing is that people can't really relate to you if they see you as being perfect or like
Oh,
untouchable.
for sure, for
It's
sure.
like um, it was a very famous well, he's famous in terms of his like negotiating abilities. His name is Jim Camp, and he talked about, yeah, his negotiating tactics were the FBI completely threw out the rule book and switched it to his, because he's like in business in particular, he might be overseeing several like multi-billion-dollar mergers at any given time, and he would be like the lead negotiator. And one of the things that he pointed out was that you need to be un-okay. Like people can't see you as being somebody who's better. Meaning, like, you know, like if you show up and you're like, I forgot my pen, can I borrow one of yours? Even something small like that, people can relate to you much better. And so, how much more so if you're in a training situation, and you know the only thing people know about you is your successes. You know, your students just think, oh well,
Yep.
this guy's a phenom. He's untouchable. And then, you know, they have a moment where they're like, gosh, you know, like I'm just super exhausted, and, you know, like work has been crazy, and, you know, their training has sucked, and they're thinking, hey, maybe I should just cash my chips in because my training has gone downhill. How could it ever go uphill? Like they just can't conceive of it. And if you can say, look, I've been where you are. I've had the setbacks. I've had these setbacks on a national, like on an international stage. I was abroad and I didn't compete nearly as well as I thought. And here's what I found work. People can relate to you better and they can trust you more if they can see that you have been in their position and that you've exceeded it. So I think that's an excellent lesson because, again, I think especially with the advent of and the popularity of social media, people only put their best foot forward.
Oh, and I'm guilty of that as well. I only put the good stuff. I very rarely put, the stuff that makes me, that I feel where I come up short.
Yeah.
I have and I will, but I'm as, like I said, I got an ego. I want to generate business and revenue, and I know what works for me or has worked for me, and so at a time like this, and this is an opportunity for me to share reality, a little bit, and not that I try to hide that stuff from people, but it is about making myself look good, unfortunately, so.
Yeah, but and I think that's important too, because the other thing is that, and I think it can be done well. I've done videos like this in the past where it was like I had a video where I did something cool, like on on some gymnastics rings, and then the next video I posted the next day was like an outtakes reel. It's like here's how many times it took me to actually nail it. Just so you guys know, I'm not a complete stud. Like this was like time number 10, and I just got lucky enough to get it on video. But yeah, I do think that it's important to talk about it, to show it periodically, but I don't think anybody can really be blamed either for treating their social media as a highlight reel, because it's like if all you were to do were the reverse, like here are all the times I've screwed up, people would watch you for a different reason, and it wouldn't be for inspiration. It would be just, purely to point and laugh. And so I think, there's no shame in pointing out like, here are the ways and the times that I've fallen short. Like a very famous thing that Michael Jordan talked about how he missed these many the game-winning shots. He threw this many bricks or, whatever it may have been, but he never stopped. And that's why he won, that stuff is absolutely important. Now, with all this said, I know that you've also got an online business, and I believe you have online students and everything like that. Tell me a little bit about that too, and how you got into that.
I actually kind of fell into that, luckily. I started that business, and it's tough. I didn't want to do it because there's so many people that do it, and I thought, what do I do that's different? Whatever. And I begrudgingly started, and I got it up and running shortly before COVID happened. And when COVID shut my gym down, and my social media became kind of my link to business, and it went from, hey, here's what I do, to like, hey, here's how I can help you as well. And when people couldn't go to their gyms anymore, and everybody bought kettlebells, it really kind of took off, and I've been very blessed since then, that I've stayed as busy as I have with it, because whether people decided that it's not worth going back to the gym, or I like this style of training, or whatever, I've been able to stay busy. And so my website is Levi's Harder to Kill Training. That's a whole different story in itself as well. But the Harder to Kill Training is I like to kind of qualify that, if I may. If you train with me, I'm not going to say that you're tough, and if you get into a street fight or whatever, you're going to be the victor. Harder to Kill Training is about being resilient to whatever life throws at you. This was made in honor of my dad. It's a little bit clickbaity, I admit, but I would rather it kind of stand out and get your attention, and then know the reasoning behind it is, my dad, succumbed to lifestyle choices. Unfortunately, a lot of it was could be linked to lifestyle choices, and so the training aspect of Harder to Kill Training is just, making sure that you're taking care of yourself and things like that. So Levi's Harder to Kill Training. And then right now, because I have been blessed, I'm not taking on unique training programs. Typically what I do is I program once a week, written for people's goals, and depending on what kind of equipment they have. And so we progress week by week, but right now all I have available is the basic membership. And the basic membership is just a bunch of kettlebells and calisthenics, that you can do anywhere, at home, at a gym, at a track, at the high school, in the park with a pull-up bar, whatever. You can do that wherever you want to take a couple of bells. It's just a bunch of templates. And so you can modify that as needed. I add 2 each week. You can do more than 2 a week, but that's what I add to my website each week. Currently, I just finished adding week 221. So there's 442 programs on my website right now that are all different. There's some that are similar, of course, but single bell, double bell. There's some old hardstyle formats. There's some kettlebell sport formats. There's a little bit of everything on there.
Very cool.
And that's just $35 a month.
That's like nothing, folks. So
that's like nothing.
That's Levi's hardertokilltraining.com.
Yep.
Awesome. So I'm going to put a link in the show notes. So anybody wants to check that out, Levi's hardertokilltraining.com. I can definitely say it'd be worth it, because I've watched your stuff for many years. I've always enjoyed it, and I still make it a point to catch your videos and the pictures you post. And you look incredible. Your performance has only gotten better as the years have gone on. So definitely big props for me.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And folks, again, Levi's hardertokilltraining.com. Be sure to check it out. Levi, thank you for being here.
I really appreciate it. It was good to catch up again. I enjoyed my time as a student under you at Corey's place. And, for those listening, I think enough of Alex that I actually brought him in to teach a lot of my kids. About 5 years ago, we were talking, I think it was. And so somebody that absolutely knows his way around a weight room and a kettlebell and calisthenics. I am grateful to have made that trip to Sioux Falls all those years ago and to meet you in person and to learn from you and then just to have you teach, because as a 210, 220, whatever I happen to weigh, those calisthenics, man, I just can't quite demonstrate them like a real pro can. So they're fun to look at, but it's a lot of flailing on the rings for me. So.
Well, that's how you got to start, You always got to start somewhere. I flailed for many, many years to get here. So, you can be sure that you can go from flailing and failing to crushing it and succeeding. All you need is the right plan. So, appreciate the kind words. Thank you all for listening. And as always, have fun and happy training.